Hello and welcome into a Slice of Life hour for your dose of do-it-yourself motivation. I'm Eugene Lo. Thank you very much for joining me. And today we're going to find out more about a new book called Discovering Your Sweet Spot, a soul-searching guide for creating the life you really want, written by leading life coach Rajiv Vij. The book discusses a path for personal transformation that has worked for several others in discovering higher fulfillment, deeper relationships, better balance, and greater peace and happiness in their lives. Founded in the belief that skills for being happier can be acquired, the inspirational insights shared in the book will empower you for the rest of your life. Now, Rajiv is a life and executive coach. He works with leaders in business, public service, and the social sector across the Asia Pacific to help them discover and fulfill their leadership potential. And his client list includes Fortune 500 corporations, large Indian conglomerates, and social sector organizations. And I'm sure his extensive experience in the corporate sector as well as in his personal life have contributed quite a bit to the book as well. More on that later. But first, the title of the book is quite fascinating, Rajiv, Discovering Your Sweet Spot. Did you mean it as something that is perhaps not usually easy to find, and it takes, time and effort?
Yeah, I would say so. I think, there's a bit of a process and a method to discover that sweet spot. It doesn't come to us naturally, at least to most of us. And I think that's what the book is about, that there is a bit of a journey that we embark ourselves on consciously, and then we can discover that sweet spot. All right. So what do you mean by that sweet spot? Yeah, so sweet spot really, it's like perhaps the analogy I would say is that if you're familiar with any ball sport, right? Tennis or golf or baseball, and so you know what it takes to hit the ball on the sweet spot. You need to be focused and relaxed. And it's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? You can either be focused or relaxed. That's easy. But how do you be both?
Right.
And I think bringing these paradoxical opposites in different contexts of our life together in some kind of an optimal balance is what the sweet spot is about. And you can kind of expand the idea to any facet of your life. So let's say from a work point of view, right? The challenges between being successful and finding meaning or being happy. So if you are singularly in the pursuit of success without clarity of a clear life's purpose behind it, perhaps you're going to experience lack of fulfillment. On the other hand, if you are pursuing something that you're really passionate about, but aren't able to make progress with it, aren't able to succeed with it, you're perhaps going to start feeling frustrated at some point.
Yeah.
So being able to find that optimal balance where there is success, there is meaning, there is happiness, all of that. And you can apply it to relationships. That's the other one, right? So if you are a very, let's say, an aggressive kind of a person, always want your point of view, it's likely that you're not going to be a very lovable, likable kind of a person. On the other hand, if you are the type who doesn't express your needs very well and tends to be, let's say, a little more sort of submissive or permissive kind of a person, perhaps you're not going to be very happy either because your needs never get served well because you don't express them. And to be able to find that optimal balance where you are kind of assertive and authentic, you express yourself well, but yet are very sensitive to others' point of view and respectful of their perspective, etc. So, you can apply it to parenting, to all kinds of, pieces of our life.
Yeah, it's about respecting yourself as a person in your inherent nature, but combining that with how you manage the world and interacting with other people as well.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. I think, you hit it bang on, because I think it is stemming from a deeper understanding of our own inner self. And then I think it becomes just that much easier to find that balance with the external world.
Yeah, it sounds to me quite similar to perhaps a songwriter who is struggling to compose that perfect symphony or that perfect song. Right? And we're chatting today with Rajiv Vij, who is a life and executive coach. His new book is called Discovering Your Sweet Spot, a soul-searching guide for creating the life you really want. And the image on the cover says quite a lot, I think, among a list of 12 values, any one of which could be the holy grail to one who truly, possesses it. Yet your dial clearly tunes to responsibility. Why is this value worth our focus, Rajiv?
Yeah, so I think somewhere I mean, there are other pieces, as you said, on that dial as well, which are all very important. But at the end, I think it comes back to taking personal responsibility and recognizing that the change is within us. And we, if we want, can work on our own self to find a happier self, a happier version of ourselves, and find more meaning in our life. And for all of that, while there are different tools and techniques and ideas available to go on that journey, but at the end it boils down to, are we going to commit ourselves to that? Are we going to take responsibility to make it happen? And I think that's where responsibility does come, as really important.
Taking personal accountability as opposed to, say, blaming the world, blaming external forces for our situations.
Yes, absolutely. Because, very often we
Why
do
is that
end up
disempowering? Why is that?
Because we tend to externalize our challenges, right? So, which means we are letting others determine, or others' actions determine how happy or otherwise we feel. So, it's the usual thing, my spouse doesn't care for me anymore, right? Versus, is that the reality, or the reality is that I have stopped demonstrating my love for my spouse? Or, kids these days, I mean, how often have I used that sentence and heard many of my friends use it, right? Kids these days are like that. But the fact is, have kids stopped listening to us, or have we stopped understanding their needs? Where's the truth? And I think the recognition that irrespective of our external circumstances or the type of people we interact with, when we start to change within ourselves and our outlook, irrespective of the outside world, the reality we start to experience does change. And that's where I think it's very empowering to recognize that I don't have to be the victim of my circumstances. It's within me to choose how I respond to my circumstances and the life I want to create.
Yes. And these days, that philosophy is quite clear, I think, to most people, taking charge of your own lives. But I think perhaps it's a form of psychological or mental laziness that we cede our personal power to external forces, because when we do that, it's just convenient. We don't have to we don't expand any effort, right, to make things better. We just say, that's the way life is horrible, woe is me, and then you can just throw it in the towel, right? And that's the end of it. So that's why most people, I mean, it's very human as well to do that. Yeah, but it really is essential to take the conscious effort to take back that personal power, to reclaim that personal power and responsibility in your life to make your life better. Today I'm chatting with Rajiv Vij, who is the author of a new book, Discovering Your Sweet Spot, a soul-searching guide for creating the life you really want. More on the book, as well as Rajiv as a life and executive coach, over at rajivvij.com. That's RAJIVVIJ.com. There is a link on my Facebook page as well. Search A Slice of Life under Pages. I'm Eugene Loh. Continue to chat with Rajiv in just a couple of minutes here on 938 Live's A Slice of Life Hour. Helping us discover our sweet spot today is author and life executive coach Rajiv Vij, and it is a new book called Discovering Your Sweet Spot, a soul-searching guide for creating the life you really want. And soul-searching, does that relate to self-reflection, self-meditation? You have dedicated this book, Rajiv, to the small divine voice that exists within each of us. What do you mean by this voice? Is it intuition?
Yeah, it is intuition. It's definitely intuition. And I think the more we listen to it and the more we trust it, the more it guides us towards doing the right things. And when I say right things, I don't mean just from an ethical and integrity point of view, but also more importantly from aligning our lives to our inner selves. So it's kind of finding the deeper purpose of our life and then being able to live that out as we guided by that inner voice.
So there is an inherent wisdom in all of us, you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. you know,
Okay.
and you can see it in small kids, right? I mean, you know, they can tell from right or wrong, and you know, there's so many aspects
Yes.
that just exist. We are born with it. In
It's
fact,
in
we
our
lose
genes,
it.
right? It's been passed down through the generations.
Yes.
That's for sure, right?
Yeah,
It's in
yeah.
all of us, but we need to be able to tap into it. That's one part of it. The other part you mentioned was alignment, which is so important. And I have heard before one definition of happiness and fulfillment in life, which is the alignment of your values with your behavior, how you live your life. So once you've aligned that, you know, of course you've identified your core values as well, that is when you attain true sort of like mental peace and happiness as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if I can just sort of expand on that powerful idea, which is, the way I look at it is that there are two pieces. There is the sense of meaning in our life, you know, the lack of fulfillment and search for meaning. And on the other hand is kind of the undercurrents of unhappiness and hence the search for happiness. So I think when we align ourselves to our values and live the purpose of our life very clearly, that gives us a deeper sense of meaning. Right? So there's a deep fulfillment within us for doing something purposeful and dedicating long periods of our life towards a specific cause, whatever it may be.
Yes, there's a validation that comes from the inside that is most powerful because, you know, that you know it's for sure. You know, it's not something unpredictable out there.
Yes,
Yeah?
absolutely. And it's not variable to external parameters of evaluation or how are you going to measure it. You just know it.
Mm-hmm.
And where I draw the distinction between meaning and happiness to some extent is you could be pursuing a very purposeful life, and yet it is possible for you to lack some of that happiness. So, for example, I do a lot of work with social sector leaders, right, who are obviously dedicated their lives to a specific cause. But what happens is that our inner personality traits, our belief systems, our emotional triggers, our inner demons, we bring those along to wherever we go because that's who we are, right? So whether we are in a social sector or corporate sector or artist or whatever, we are going to bring those things with us. And to be able to work on them, and that's where the whole piece of self-awareness, self-reflection, self-responsibility comes in, to become aware of who we are and what our triggers are, what our sort of conditioned beliefs are which are holding us back from being happier or relating to the world in a better place. As we work on that as well, coupled with following a purpose which gives us meaning, I think that completes to me sort of the cycle of being happy then.
Right, so there are a couple of components to it.
Yes.
Right, and it's not one size fits all. We're all unique, right? So we have to find our own paths.
Oh,
yeah? And
absolutely. It's,
so
it's
this is-
not
Exactly.
No, and which is why, I mean, as you know, as you read the book, I mean, it's not in that sense prescriptive. It does give the framework.
Yes.
But how you apply it to your own context is going to be very tailor-made and personalized, and not like, okay, here is the 5 ways to reduce stress. I mean,
Yes.
that's not what this is about. But
Yes.
it'll guide you to techniques and tools which can help you reduce stress in your own life.
Yes,
That
it's
kind
not
of-
mathematical in that
Yes.
sense. It's not a formula, but it is a guide. That's that's the subtitle for the book as well. So where do we start? That soul searching. It comes from inside. So is it meditation? Is it self-reflection?
Yeah, I think self-reflection is a great word. I think that's really the starting point because we are all leading such busy lives, particularly in large, metropolises and with, busy workplaces and so on and so forth, that we rarely pause and stop and reflect on exactly where is our life going and who am I being and, what am I doing, what is it for, etc., etc. And life kind of passes by. And so reflection is definitely the very core and the foundational piece of starting this journey of change, because that allows us to connect with our inner self. And that cuts through all the noise, all the volatility, all the confusion around us, which comes from all these multiplicity of choices. You could do that, you could do that, different types of jobs, different type of schools your kids could go to, different kind of holiday destinations, all of that. So to cut through all of that clutter, if we can build inner stillness within ourselves through reflection, that gives us the anchor of a starting place of a, groundedness from where we can start springboard into, finding our sweet spot.
How do we do that self-reflection though? Is there a method to it, or is it simply just taking that, say, maybe 20 minutes a day just to still your mind and then just allow whatever comes to come?
Yeah. So multiple ways. I think from my personal experience, what I have found particularly powerful is meditation. And there are any number of meditation techniques out there, but I particularly have found mindfulness practice a really powerful one. And whatever amount of time people can find for it, my recommendation to most people would be starting with about 20 minutes. So it's not small, but at the same time, it's not so high a number that you can't create those, if I said 2 hours, that's maybe challenging. But 20 minutes is perhaps a doable number. And yet there is a lot you can do in that 20 minutes to really connect with yourself, to find that stillness through some of the breathing practices, etc. And also maybe spend few minutes, for example, on gratefulness. Again, we take so many things for granted in our life, and we so often tend to focus on what's missing rather than be grateful for all the wonderful things we have.
And a lot of it, like we were talking about before, is inherent. This wisdom is in us, provided we take the time and the effort to perhaps call on it or to tap into it. But there is also that aspect of learning from other people's experiences, of course, as well. Because, we can't contain all the wisdom in the world. But, we can learn from also gaining more knowledge from other sources, which perhaps are aligned with our own values as well. And a good source is your book, which is called Discovering Your Sweet Spot, a soul-searching guide for creating the life you really want. Author Rajiv Vij is with me today to chat more about the book. You can find out more about the book over at his website. It's rajivvij.com. A link is available at my Facebook page. Search A Slice of Life under Pages. It is also available at Kinokuniya bookstores. We'll continue to chat with Rajiv in just about 15 minutes after headline news, sports and business. To stay with me here on 938 Live. Hello and welcome back to A Slice of Life Hour for some do-it-yourself motivation. I'm Eugene Low. Now, in a society increasingly driven by the manic pursuit of externally visible rewards, this new book, Discovering Your Sweet Spot, a soul-searching guide for creating the life you really want, not only underscores the need for greater purpose in our lives, but also elaborates on the inner journey of self-discovery that can help us create a truly meaningful life. It is written by Rajiv Vij, who is a life and executive coach, and these days he works with leaders in business, public service and the social sector across the Asia Pacific to help them discover and fulfill their leadership potential. His client list includes Fortune 500 corporations, large Indian conglomerates and social sector organizations. But before that, he had another life. Prior to starting his coaching practice in 2006, he served as managing director, Asia, Middle East, Africa and Eastern Europe for Franklin Templeton Investments, and in many ways this book is also his story, Rajiv, isn't it?
Yeah, in the sense, it's not like an autobiography in that sense,
no.
But it's definitely emanating from my personal experiences and my own journey of going through that whole space of soul searching when I left the corporate life, successful life and all of that. And I think one of the key learnings there was that success does not necessarily lead to happiness, which is kind of a fundamental principle which subconsciously many of us are pursuing, assuming that, once I'm successful, I will be happier. And as I found, it's not so direct.
Yes.
And you have to, some people are born to be happy, but then for many of us, I think the good news, as I discovered, is that there is a way, it's a skill which we can practice and work on, and we can get there too.
Yes.
But yes, it's a bit of a hard work, it's a effort,
Yeah.
but we can get there. So, and that's what I think is described the pathway to find that meaning and happiness.
Right. Actually, I'm inclined to believe, though, that all of us are born to be happy. It's just that the world makes us unhappy, through the conditioning that we get, and that's why a lot of us have, in a way, learned to, like you mentioned, because, these definitions of success have been drummed into us ever since we were born. And so we think that by attaining these particular accolades or what have you, it will make us happy. But that is that's the wrong thing. And then at some point in our lives, we start to question.
Right.
Yes, and I like how you put that book into 3 parts, which very nicely kind of like start us off with what is that fundamental malaise or the challenge that we all face. We reach that spot where we start to question things, and that's why the first part of your book is about crisis and meaning. And then after that, it kind of like compels you to go within yourself to find that genuine change before ending off with part 3, which is mastery of the self.
Right.
Yeah. Did you put that book in strategically in that way?
Yeah, I think so, because what happens is that I feel people are able to connect better with their current reality. So, whatever's going on around them, it's easy to relate to that and say, yeah, I can see myself in that. And once, you're connected with that, then you say, okay, yeah, I realize that maybe some things are missing in my life, or there are undercurrents of unhappiness, of lack of fulfillment in my life too. And that prompts me to then say, okay, what can I do about it? And then I think the point that, changes within us and how that's demonstrated in the book, and then finally to pursuing that path in a more conscious way as not something, I think I also want to highlight that it's not a destination. Yeah. This whole, journey, this is really a journey.
It's a constant refinement, because perfection is impossible,
exactly,
for us at least.
Yeah. And the sweet spot is not still as well. So you discover a sweet spot, you get to that fine balance where everything is, but we are in a world of change, right? So some parameter in that sort of golden space is going to move. And then, but the good news is that if you follow the process, you will be able to discover your next sweet spot.
Yes.
Right? And that's how you get to order, a little bit of disorder, back to order. That path you can pursue in a conscious way.
Yeah, it's the development of a resilience which is so important, right? Because even if you've achieved your sweet spot, there are a number of things that can scuttle that sweet spot of yours, and then from there it's picking yourself up again to find the next sweet spot.
Yes. In fact, you can be pretty sure something is going to give way. You can be pretty sure something will change. And I think where you can draw your strength and confidence from is the fact that you know a way now to work on on that situation. That's, I think, where the power lies. So it's not like at every moment or for the rest of your life you're going to be in that sweet spot. But every time you fall off the cliff, you are able to climb back up.
We are that much better equipped at doing it. Yeah. And, fortunately or unfortunately, for most of us, we have to get to that, just organically get to that stage where we start to question, that meaning in our lives and start to change our lives for the better. But of course, via, things like, your book and via your coaching as well, we hopefully help people get to that before, it takes such a long time, because we all can benefit from starting right now, no matter how young we are, right? But, for you, I suppose you started with the writing of the blog, right?
Yes.
And that's how it culminated into this book as well. And something drives that need to write. And I love the first line of the introduction, which says, most authors write about what they themselves need to learn the most. Right. And it's what drives the curiosity, isn't it, Rajiv? So you just had to do it.
Absolutely. And in a lot of this sort of self-help and non-fiction type of work, I think at the end, while you believe at certain point in time that you're really writing for the benefit of the readers, and you want to really help stimulate their thoughts and all of that, but a lot of the sharing that you do actually is your own learning, and by putting that, even as I started to write the blog, quite frankly, my intent was to help people, stimulate their thoughts and so on. But what I learned in the process was I am the biggest gainer of writing that blog, because it forces me to crystallize my own thoughts.
Yes.
Right? And clarifies things in my own head.
Yes.
And that's why writing this book has been such a powerful, rewarding journey for me.
Yes.
Even though I was trying to write it for others.
Yes. It's quite similar to what you were talking about earlier, right? That meditation and self-reflection. So writing the blog was just the external manifestation of that inner self-reflection.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of an expression of what you're experiencing and learning.
And so burning questions that you yourself wanted to find answers to. These, have you found them?
That's a
It's a trick question.
$1 billion question. Yes. Okay, so here's what I would say to that. That I think I believe I have a fairly healthy grasp of it now. Do I end up practicing it as much as I would love to? Perhaps not. I think, I can go more ways in terms of trying to practice it in more hours in a day or more moments in a day. Oh, definitely. So, and that's where I think it's a journey. But the good part I feel is that I do have an anchor of some reflection time every day. And that's what tries to bring me back to saying, okay, hang on, here I'm getting a little, what am I pursuing this for? Or what's going on here? Or did I do the right thing in that interaction with someone? And I think that anchor brings me back to saying, okay, hang on, let's regroup within ourselves and listen to that inner voice of wisdom and start again, so I think that helps.
And of course we have, time restrictions, on the show today, but could you just take us through, because this book is about discovering your sweet spot. It is a process, an evolution, a soul-searching guide for creating the life you really want. Can you just, perhaps briefly, in a nutshell, take us through that process? How do you start and where does it go? Hopefully.
Yeah. So I would say there are essentially 4 key steps, I would say, in that journey. First, as we talked about earlier, is the self-reflection place. I think that's really just foundational. Unless we pause and take some time to reflect, other changes are harder to come by. The second key piece is building self-awareness. And that self-awareness is really about becoming deeply aware of our own thoughts, feelings, actions, behavior, attitude, beliefs, all kinds of things, which guide us almost instinctively, right? We are not doing it in a conscious way. We just tend to get angry at certain types of things. Not that we want to, but we do. So what is triggering that? And so on and so forth. So once we understand that, we can begin to reform our inner selves in that sense. The third piece is purpose, which is quite central to the whole, process, as you talked earlier about, finding that meaning and all of that. And I think clarifying the purpose of our pursuits. What do we want our life to be about? Similarly, what do we want our professional life to be about? We spend so many hours trying to climb the social, financial, and the corporate ladder. But do we take a moment to question whether our ladder is leaning against the right wall in the first place? Which ladder are we trying to climb? So I think questioning some of those things at a deeper level. And the final piece is self-responsibility, which you started with, which is then owning up and saying, it's within me to make these changes, and it's within me to create a life which is full of meaning and happiness for myself. So I think all these 4 pieces put together, provide the pathway to discovering that sweet spot.
I see. So the essence is awareness, isn't it? Both of yourself and of the world as well. How, the subtle nuances of how you interact with the world and how the world makes you feel, being able to rationalize in a sense, the things that happen to us, how we respond to them, how we cope with them. That is key to helping us, continue on this journey.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, awareness is so crucial. And just to give you an example, I think if we started by just being aware of our thoughts and feelings through a day, actually even for 15 minutes in a day, I think it'll be huge. Because just that awareness makes us realize how moment to moment we are thinking about, right now I'm thinking I'm being envious of this person, or right now I'm being greedy about this issue, right now I'm feeling sad about this. All of that will sort of illustrate to us what is dictating our behavior and thoughts and feelings. And once we just become aware, I think it starts us on the journey of change.
And it's very empowering as well, right? In the knowledge that, we can, for example, they brought up, I'm feeling envious about this person, I'm angry with this person, I'm feeling jealous or whatever. But then the power is in knowing that we can change how we feel.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And that's where this process helps, because once we are, if we are not aware of our, motivations and things that are driving us, we are just on a bit of an autopilot, right? I mean, things are just happening in our life. When we step back and observe and label some of these thoughts and feelings that we are experiencing, then we are automatically motivated to do something about them. right? So if we just started to observe, let's say somebody who gets angry easily, if they just started to observe how many times in a day do they get angry, what do they get angry about, just that much, nothing more, automatically within few days they'll start getting angry fewer times.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I mean, the journey of change has already begun just
Yes.
by observing,
Yes.
just by becoming aware.
Rationalization and reconciliation, acceptance of the facts. That is something that helps us. I mean, it's about logic and reason of reality, of being able to, I suppose, develop the tools, internal tools to help us bend in the wind rather than, than breaking in it. Like we
Yes.
mentioned earlier, that resilience. And a lot of it has to do with being able to explain and rationalize these things to ourselves.
Yeah. To make those connections,
All right. And, I really love the many, phrases in your book as well. There are many truisms there, phrases that succinctly and lucidly, convey some deep truth and wisdom that allow us to lead, happier and more successful lives. And obviously that's come from a well of experience. Thank you so much for Rajiv, for sharing your thoughts with us today.
No, it's been my pleasure. Thanks. I really enjoyed the conversation.
And do check out Rajiv's book. It's called Discovering Your Sweet Spot, a soul-searching guide for creating the life you really want, written by life and executive coach Rajiv Vij, my guest today on A Slice of Life. You can go to rajivvij.com to find out more about the man and his work. The book is also available at Kinokuniya bookstores. If you have something to share with me as well, do email me. It's Eugene at mediacorp.com.sg. I'm Eugene Loh. Thank you so much for joining me here today.